Hi, I'm Adam from Messenger Bag Media, and today I'm going to demonstrate the basics of non-destructive editing in Adobe Photoshop. Specifically, I'm going to introduce you to smart objects and layer masks, their functions, and why you should be using them. Let's jump into it. One benefit of using smart objects is non-destructive scaling. I'm going to first place an image in this Photoshop file. As of now, this is just a regular image. If I wish to scale this image smaller, I cannot scale the image back up to its original size without noticing a significant loss in resolution. Because my image is not a smart object, Photoshop resamples it when I transform its scale, degrading the quality of the image if you scale it smaller than its original size. This workflow would be considered destructive editing. Let's start over. Placing my image into Photoshop, if I right-click on my image layer and hit Convert to Smart Object, you'll see a small icon appear in the corner of my image. This icon signals that the layer is now a smart object. Think of a smart object as a container holding any object put inside of it, in this case an image. Now that my image is converted to a smart object, I can scale it large and small repeatedly without suffering any loss of quality. This workflow would be non-destructive because it does not erase any of the information from the original file as I make adjustments. Another benefit of using smart objects is that you can apply non-destructive effects. Returning to my Photoshop artboard, I will apply a blur to a regular image layer. Once applied, these effects are considered baked in and cannot be adjusted. This can cause serious workflow issues down the road if I decide that I wish to change or adjust one of these effects. I'll need to undo the operation and reapply the effect from scratch. However, if I convert this layer into a smart object before applying my desired effects, you'll notice a smart filter menu under my image layer, listing the active effects. If I wish to adjust one of these effects later, all I need to do is double-click on the effect under my layer and make any adjustments. Remember how I said smart objects are like containers? Well, this is actually a very useful function. Let's take a look at a very simple screen replacement example. There are many ways to do this, but this is a quick method that allows for easy adjustments to the image on the screen. I'll begin by drawing a shape with the same aspect ratio as the computer screen and convert it into a smart object. I can do a non-destructive perspective transform by using the shortcut Command or Control T and holding Command or Control as I drag the anchor points of the shape to fit the corners of the screen. You'll see now that if I double-click on the smart object, it will open a new Photoshop tab. This is because the smart object is a container holding information, not an actual image itself. So if I place an image and some text in this tab and save it, you'll see that it appears on the smart object I'd already placed over the computer screen. Pretty neat, huh? It matches the perspective that I warped the shape to, and if I decide I need to change the contents of the screen later, I can always open the smart object and reach the original material undamaged. Smart objects are one tool to ensure you are editing non-destructively on your images. Next, let's take a look at layer masks. Here I have two overlapping images, as you can see in my image module, but we can only see one. This is because the top image is eclipsing the bottom image. If I want to add some transparency to the first image to reveal the one below it, I have a few options. My first option is to delete or erase the pixels on the first image, either using a selection tool or by using the eraser tool itself. This works fairly well, but as with effects on non-smart objects, it does not afford me the ability to adjust or remove the transparency later without undoing the operation. A much better option is to use layer masks. To do this, I will select the layer mask icon at the bottom of the layers module. You'll see a white layer appear beside my active layer. This is a mask that corresponds opacity to transparency. Let me explain. Right now, the opacity of the layer mask is set to 0. It's entirely white, meaning that the transparency of my layer is set to 0%. If I grab the brush tool and set it to 100% black, you'll see that as I brush my mask, it creates transparency on my layer. However, no pixels are actually being deleted, meaning that I can change my brush to white and all that image information is still available. Again, non-destructive editing. When working with a brush, you have four main controls: the size, hardness, opacity, and flow. Size is, well, the size of your brush in pixels. Hardness controls the amount of feathering around the brush, the hardness or the contrast of the brush edge. Opacity is the maximum opacity of color that your brush is able to produce. Flow, on the other hand, is how quickly it will reach that maximum opacity. A 25% flow, for example, will take 4 strokes to reach the full opacity, whereas 100% flow will only take 1. Keep in mind, however, that if your opacity is only set to 50%, the 25% flow will be 25% of that 50% total opacity. I think that makes sense. If you'd like to see a separate video more in depth on the brush tool, let us know in the comments. But those are some simple functions that will get you going when making masks. Masks also work great with the selection tool. When using selection tools, the select and mask function affords greater control over your selection. If I use the object selection tool to select my subject, I can use select and mask to make finer adjustments. I can then save this as a new layer mask rather than actually deleting the surrounding pixels. Stay tuned for a separate video on the different selection methods and background removal using the select and mask tool. We barely scratched the surface on non-destructive editing, and there's always 1,000 ways to do the same thing in Photoshop. If you're looking for any tips and tricks to improve your graphic design, videography, or photography skills, check out our channel. And if you like what you see, please consider subscribing. Perhaps your media needs are greater than you can manage on your own. Messenger Bag Media is your one-stop media shop. We serve businesses large and small for all communication needs. Visit messengerbagmedia.ca. Reach out and let's create something amazing together. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.